Should you find yourself drawn to this message, trust that a profound layer of your energetic signature has already recognized the monumental shifts occurring within you. I am not speaking of your conscious intellect, the analytical, surface-level facet of your brain that obsesses over daily schedules, categorizes tasks, and tirelessly attempts to rationalize the mysteries of existence. Rather, I refer to a much more profound, subterranean aspect of your soul. This silent, invisible force has been meticulously restructuring the very foundation of your reality, operating entirely behind the scenes for far longer than your conscious awareness could possibly detect. It is this exact, unseen magnetism that has guided you precisely to this coordinate in time and space. You have been summoned to this specific transmission because your spirit has reached a critical threshold of readiness. You are finally prepared to comprehend the profound energetic alchemy currently unfolding within your personal aura. Let me offer you this absolute reassurance. Your life is not collapsing. You are not slipping away from your true identity, nor are you fractured, lost, or lagging behind on your timeline. The intense, often overwhelming experiences you are navigating right now possess a distinct title, a specific quantum framework, and a brilliantly illuminated energetic signature that is vividly apparent to me. My intention is to illuminate this phenomenon for you. By mirroring the majestic work your aura is undertaking during this magnificent, yet turbulent chapter of your evolution, I aim to permanently shift your perspective. Never again will you conflate the beautiful, necessary process of your spiritual blossoming with the illusion of your own destruction. Before we dive deeper into this revelation, I invite you to anchor yourself in a visceral, physical sensation. Gently redirect your absolute focus toward the center of your chest. Do not simply intellectualize this area. Rather, truly inhabit the physical cavity where your physical heart continues its rhythmic beating. This is the biological epicenter that emits the most potent, measurable electromagnetic aura your human form can possibly produce. Breathe into it. Tune into the tangible physical feedback, whether it manifests as a comforting warmth, a subtle tightness, a vibrant thrum of vitality, or any other unique sensation rising to the surface at this exact second. You must understand that this specific energetic sphere, a highly verifiable and scientifically proven magnetic resonance cast outward by every single pulsation of your heart, is currently transmitting a potent signal into the universe. The predominant vibration you are echoing into the cosmos is the pure, unfiltered frequency of metamorphosis. It is the unmistakable energetic hum of a soul suspended in the beautiful, messy threshold of transforming into a completely unprecedented version of themselves. You are radiating the frequency of a necessary surrender. An older iteration of your identity is gracefully passing away merely to clear the stage so an authentic, higher dimensional self can take its first breath. This is the undeniable broadcast you are sending out. Your auric field is practically glowing with it. Frankly, it stands as one of the most blindingly brilliant, intensely potent, and awe-inspiring energetic waves a mortal being can generate. Why? Because it serves as undeniable proof that you possess the vital life force required to evolve. You hold the elevated consciousness necessary to strip away the false layers, and you harbor the quantum-level courage needed to allow outdated paradigms to crumble into dust. By letting these archaic structures dissolve, you are creating a sacred vacuum for a version of yourself that is fundamentally more harmonious, dazzling, and fiercely genuine to rise from the ashes. You have always carried a spark, radiating your own unique light. However, the magnificent entity you are rapidly evolving into is destined to blaze with a luminosity that your former identity could not possibly fathom in its wildest dreams. Allow me to peel back the veil and reveal the underlying mechanics of your current reality. Within the realm of quantum mechanics, there exists a fundamental principle known as coherence. Stripped of its complex academic jargon, coherence describes a state where all individual components of a complex system synchronize perfectly. They begin to vibrate in total alignment, operating as a singular, harmonious entity instead of a chaotic cluster of opposing, discordant frequencies. Consider the nature of illumination. A laser represents perfectly coherent light. Ordinary illumination, such as the soft glow from a standard living room lamp, diffuses and scatters its energy aimlessly into the surrounding space. A laser, conversely, forces every single photon into an intensely disciplined, singular column of light. This focused alignment grants it the sheer force to slice effortlessly through solid steel. The elemental substance light remains identical, yet the extreme shift in coherence yields a devastatingly exponential increase in sheer power. Your personal energetic blueprint operates on this exact same universal law. Think back to how you navigated existence as your former self, the persona meticulously constructed through societal programming, inherited anxieties, the heavy burdens of external expectations, and deep-seated survival mechanisms adopted during childhood when you lacked the agency to protect yourself otherwise. Operating from that space, your auric field remained wildly fractured. You were essentially transmitting a barrage of paradoxical and warring messages into the ether all at once. One fragment of your soul yearned desperately for boundless growth, while another was paralyzed by the unknown. A piece of your heart hungered for profound intimacy. Yet another wounded fragment remained convinced that connection inevitably guarantees betrayal and loss. Deep down, a spark within you recognized your intrinsic majesty, while your conditioned mind constantly whispered narratives of inadequacy. These wildly opposing energetic directives constantly crashed into one another within your subtle body, generating a phenomenon that scientific observers label incoherence. Naturally, a state of energetic incoherence translates directly into weakness and vulnerability. When your broadcast is jumbled, the universe responds by delivering equally erratic and unreliable manifestations. This scattered resonance is precisely what breeds ongoing friction within your romantic and platonic relationships, manifests as chronic physical fatigue, and heavily obscures your innate life mission. This turmoil does not arise as a cosmic punishment, nor does it imply you are fundamentally flawed or making the wrong choices. It simply occurs because your energetic output is terribly fragmented, sending mixed instructions to the fabric of reality. Yet, here is where we arrive at the most breathtaking aspect of your journey. This intensely challenging phase you are currently enduring, the chapter defined by profound grief, mental fog, and the terrifying sensation that the very earth is dissolving beneath your footsteps, is deeply purposeful. You are watching your former identity evaporate into thin air, feeling utterly clueless as to what entity will eventually take its place. What you are truly experiencing is your energetic blueprint aggressively realigning itself toward absolute coherence. Your unique quantum vibration is meticulously reassembling around a vastly more authentic, harmonious, and singular frequency. The reason this transformative threshold carries the agonizing weight of death is that an execution is genuinely taking place. The fractured, chaotic framework of your past is systematically being dismantled. The disorganized broadcasts are permanently terminating, and, naturally, within the liminal void suspended between the collapse of your old paradigm and the crystallization of your newly upgraded state, there will inevitably exist a period that masquerades as pure, unadulterated chaos. It is a necessary limbo where nothing seems to make sense, and the old pieces refuse to fit the new puzzle. You are suspended in that sacred, liminal void where the familiar structures of your past have lost their meaning, yet the architecture of your future remains shrouded in mystery. Society might label this profoundly uncomfortable gap a crisis, urging you to panic and fix it. But I am here to tell you with absolute certainty that this is not a crisis. It is a divine incubation. You have entered the chrysalis phase of your spiritual evolution, and right now, at this very second, you are enveloped within its protective, transformative walls. There is a hidden truth about the chrysalis that the vast majority of humanity simply never comprehends. Why? Because the moment most individuals enter this dark, restrictive space, absolute terror takes over. They are convinced that they have made a terrible mistake, that their lives have permanently derailed. In their panic, they desperately claw backward, grasping at the ghosts of their former habits and toxic environments. They exhaust themselves trying to reconstruct the very walls that were meant to fall, simply because the sensation of dissolving feels terrifyingly akin to dying. And, to be completely honest with you, it is a form of death, a necessary, beautiful demise of the ego. To truly grasp the magnitude of your current reality, we must look at what unfolds inside a chrysalis on a strict, biological level. Nature provides us with the most breathtaking, perfect mirror for the energetic alchemy currently happening within your aura. Contrary to popular belief, when a caterpillar seals itself inside its silken casing, it does not merely sprout a pair of wings and call it a day. It doesn't undergo a casual, step-by-step remodeling process. The biological reality is infinitely more violent, radical, and miraculous, and it perfectly mirrors the intense spiritual dismantling you are surviving today. Once enclosed, the physical body of the caterpillar systematically digests itself. It dissolves almost entirely, breaking down its own tissues until it becomes a formless, nutrient-rich liquid that scientists literally refer to as imaginal soup. The original creature, as a structured being, is utterly annihilated. But it is precisely within this amorphous, chaotic puddle of biological potential that a miracle is sparked. Deep within this fluid, highly specialized entities, known as imaginal cells, suddenly awaken. These cells were always present, hiding quietly within the caterpillar since birth, waiting for this exact moment. Once activated by the dissolution of the old body, they aggressively seek each other out. They connect, they cluster, and they utilize the recycled energy of the dead caterpillar to architect an entirely new, elevated life form. They do not build a slightly upgraded caterpillar. They manifest a magnificent, multidimensional butterfly. My friend, you are currently swimming in your own spiritual imaginal soup. Everything you thought you were, the deeply ingrained habits, the carefully constructed persona, the energetic frequencies you have unknowingly transmitted for decades, is actively liquefying, and simultaneously, the imaginal cells of your highest, most authentic soul are switching on. These pristine, untouched codes have lived within you since the dawn of your creation, silently holding the flawless quantum blueprint of your divine destiny. Right now, in the midst of this turbulent, exhausting, and incredibly disorienting chapter of your journey, these codes are firing up. What feels like your entire world collapsing is, in fact, a flawless metamorphosis. You are not experiencing a breakdown. You are experiencing a breakthrough. Your energetic field is already acutely aware of this shift. That powerful, invisible sphere of electromagnetic energy pulsing outward from your heart center, stretching outward into the physical space around you, has already initiated the broadcast of the butterfly frequency. True, your wings are not yet fully dried, your ultimate radiance hasn't entirely crystallized, but the underlying signal is unmistakably active. A brand new harmonic coherence is quietly organizing itself within you. My purpose in this exact moment is to guide you in recognizing it, deeply feeling it, and most importantly, deliberately accelerating its progress. When you actively participate in your own evolution, a conscious metamorphosis becomes exponentially more potent and swift than one endured blindly. If these words are vibrating with truth within your soul, if this frequency is genuinely resonating with the space you currently inhabit, I warmly invite you to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to this channel. Let us anchor this connection so we may continue diving into these profound quantum depths together. Let us plunge even deeper into the mechanics of your personal energy. I want to reveal a scientifically backed truth regarding your auric field. Consider the groundbreaking work of the HeartMath Institute, an elite research facility dedicated to charting the biological and energetic behaviors of the human heart. After decades of rigorous study, they have unveiled a staggering reality. The physical heart does not merely pump blood. It acts as an immense biological generator, producing an electromagnetic field roughly 60 times more expansive in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. Let that sink in. 60 times more powerful than your conscious mind. Furthermore, sensitive magnetometers have successfully measured this invisible sphere, extending outward, sometimes spanning 8 to 10 feet away from the physical flesh in every direction. We are no longer speaking in poetic metaphors or New Age spiritual concepts. This is a hard, empirical, measurable phenomenon governed by the laws of physics. At this precise millisecond, your heart is emitting a continuous, omnidirectional frequency. This invisible wave is densely packed with encrypted data detailing your current emotional landscape, your precise level of internal harmony, and your overall energetic output. But here is the crucial puzzle piece that explains your current transformative phase. Whenever the heart achieves a state of profound coherence, meaning it operates in a perfectly smooth, rhythmic, and ordered electromagnetic dance, that localized energy field begins to dramatically influence the external world. People who enter your radius are physically impacted. Their autonomous nervous systems will literally begin to harmonize with your dominant frequency. Even their brain waves will instinctively sync up to the commanding rhythm of your heart. The broader quantum field responds to this unified broadcast through a phenomenon best described as resonant assembly. Quite literally, the physical reality surrounding you begins to morph and rearrange itself to match your internal signal. Yet, the most awe-inspiring revelation regarding your specific journey lies here. Scientific observations have noted that when a human being is actively undergoing a massive emotional and energetic purge, when outdated coping mechanisms are being shed and a fresh, higher coherence is taking root, the electromagnetic field of the heart undergoes a temporary mutation. It becomes radically more sensitive, profoundly porous, and highly receptive to its environment. Imagine a plot of solid earth that has just been deeply tilled and plowed by a farmer. The soil is turned over, raw, and completely exposed. Just like that freshly tilled soil, completely exposed and eagerly awaiting new seeds, the total collapse of your archaic habits yields what we can identify as a profound quantum aperture. This is a fleeting, deeply sacred interval of hyper-receptivity, where your personal energy grid can be deliberately recalibrated to an entirely novel vibration. You are standing directly inside that very threshold at this exact second. This is precisely why the current chapter of your journey, despite feeling profoundly dizzying and terribly unmoored, is undeniably one of the most potent, architecturally significant phases you will ever survive. Think about it. When the static of the old broadcast finally shorts out, when the discordant, chaotic noise of your former identity is permanently silenced, it tears open a brilliant, cosmic window. Inside this lucid gap, you are granted the supreme authority to intentionally handpick the exact frequency of your next emanation. You get to purposely design the energetic signature of the being you are stepping into. And because your auric shield is currently softer and more porous than it has ever been in your entire existence, this freshly chosen vibration will take root with an intensity, permanence, and ferocity that would have been entirely impossible while the thick armor of your old persona was still guarding the gates. The expiration of who you used to be is by no means a tragic ending. Rather, it is the absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite for your ultimate, most majestic emergence. To anchor this truth in reality, I want to share the profound journey of a woman named Miriam. Miriam was 43 years old, and if you looked at her existence through the lens of traditional societal metrics, she was the epitome of absolute success. She had painstakingly constructed a highly respected career, spanning over 2 decades, a professional life that peers openly envied. She possessed a beautiful residence, an active social circle, and a meticulously organized daily rhythm that kept everything running flawlessly. Her romantic and platonic connections were incredibly stable, albeit lacking a certain electric spark. By her own daily affirmations, she had secured a good, solid life, an empire of safety she had bled and sweat to establish. However, spanning a grueling window of roughly 8 months, an insidious transformation began to take root within her. Initially, it was just a whisper, an undeniable, nameless agitation vibrating beneath her skin. Activities and achievements that previously filled her cup suddenly echoed with a profound emptiness. She found herself sitting in high-stakes corporate meetings that used to thrill her, only to experience a jarring dissociation. She felt as though she were hovering near the ceiling, observing a stranger play a role that no longer fit her soul's dimensions. She would return to her pristine house as night fell, only to be swallowed by a bizarre, heavy mourning. She wasn't grieving a tangible loss. Instead, she was weeping for an unrecognized destiny, grieving an iteration of herself that remained trapped in the ether, begging to be born. Desperate to fix herself, she sought out professional counseling. She completely overhauled her daily regimens. She devoured spiritual literature, hunting for purpose. She confided in her inner circle, who quickly brushed off her existential dread, insisting she was simply experiencing burnout and desperately required a tropical getaway to recharge. Yet, the heavy phantom remained. In fact, it grew vastly more suffocating. Then arrived the absolute breaking point. One ordinary morning, Miriam opened her eyes and was struck by a terrifyingly lucid realization. She simply could not take another step forward. She could no longer sustain the facade. The Miriam she had flawlessly engineered and protected for 43 years had reached its expiration date. A deep, primal facet of her spirit absolutely refused to animate that tired avatar for even one more second, even though she had utterly no clue who she was beneath the mask. She privately referred to this era as the year she fell to pieces. However, from an energetic standpoint, viewing her timeline through the precise lens of quantum mechanics and auric transition, what she endured was a textbook coherence crisis. The energetic wave she had been transmitting to the universe, a frequency carefully woven from societal pressures, childhood conditioning, and an obsession with risk avoidance, had become violently discordant. The gap between the safe character she played and the feral, authentic truth buried beneath her ribs had grown so fractured that her electromagnetic sphere literally lost its structural integrity. The ancient, heavy architecture of her coping mechanisms collapsed completely under the sheer gravitational force of her unexpressed soul. Out of that rubble, however, a breathtaking genesis was sparked. Miriam plunged herself into a 6-month sabbatical that she fondly named her wilderness. She formally resigned from her prestigious position, not in a manic fit of impulse, but anchored by a silent, unshakable conviction that left her stunned. She put her beautiful property on the market, finally admitting that it had always functioned more as a theatrical stage set for others than a true sanctuary for herself. For the first time in her adult life, she immersed herself in radical, uninterrupted solitude. Within that deafening quiet, inside the terrifying void of her own unmaking, an alien sensation began to bloom. She lacked the vocabulary to describe it at first. It was a distinct, glowing heat radiating from the very center of her breastbone. It wasn't the ache of sadness. It felt undeniably like remembering. It was the visceral experience of formally introducing herself to her own soul. Her spiritual imaginal cells were turning on. Later, she shared a revelation with me that I implore you to absorb deeply right now, for her message is intimately meant for you. She confessed that the single most petrifying second of her entire existence, the exact moment she entirely released her grip on the old Miriam and surrendered the desperate fight to glue the shattered pieces back together, was, miraculously, the very same instant she felt more aligned, more herself, than ever before. She didn't uncover a new identity. She unearthed her original one. She reclaimed the primordial essence that existed long before the trauma, before the anxieties, before the meticulously curated armor that was never hers to carry in the first place. She likened the feeling to an internal sun suddenly igniting. A palpable, radiant warmth surged outward, a vibration so undeniably real that strangers could actually sense it. It instantaneously elevated the atmosphere of any space she walked into and deepened every connection she nurtured. Miriam hadn't morphed into someone else. She simply became vastly more. She became profoundly authentic. After 4 decades of static, her signal was, at last, flawlessly coherent. This spectacular unmasking is the ultimate gift granted by the expiration of your former identity. It is never a subtraction of your intrinsic worth. Rather, it is the grand, unapologetic revelation of your purest essence. Take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Have you ever tangibly perceived your personal aura shifting gears in real time? Perhaps you can recall a specific instance where the invisible, heavy energy you had been carrying suddenly transmuted, feeling vastly lighter and more expansive. Consequently, the external world reacted to you in a completely different manner. You walked into a familiar room, yet the atmosphere shifted entirely, and people instinctively responded to the new vibration you were emitting. If you have ever experienced this profound, undeniable energetic pivot, I warmly invite you to share your story in the comments below. Let us know exactly how that internal metamorphosis physically felt within your auric field. Now, I want to guide you much deeper down the rabbit hole, venturing directly into the literal quantum mechanics that govern this type of magnificent human evolution. This is precisely where empirical science becomes breathtakingly magical, and where your personal struggles transition from confusing psychological mysteries into illuminated cosmic laws. At the microscopic, quantum tier of existence, reality is absolutely not a rigid, unchangeable structure that operates independently of the forces interacting with it. This stands as one of the most rigorously proven, yet tragically misunderstood, principles of modern physics. The observer, or more accurately, the complex electromagnetic footprint generated by the observer actively participates in forcing infinite waves of quantum probability to collapse into tangible, three-dimensional reality. To translate this into the context of your daily life, the exact frequency you are radiating, your precise level of internal harmony, and your overall energetic signature are the literal architects dictating which universal possibilities solidify into your waking experience. Make no mistake, this is not toxic positivity, nor is it wishful magical thinking. This is the application of hard quantum mechanics scaled up to the macro level of human existence. The universe operates as an infinite matrix of untapped potential. Every conceivable iteration of your destiny, every potential romance, every financial breakthrough, and every conceivable hardship exists concurrently as a fluid, suspended probability wave within the quantum fabric. Crucially, these probability waves are supremely sensitive to energetic resonance. They only collapse into physical form when they collide with a matching vibration. Therefore, your personal aura is functioning as a real-time, continuous casting director, selecting which realities get to step onto the physical stage of your life. When your broadcast is erratic and fragmented, torn between the terrors of the past and the desires of the future, caught between societal conditioning and your soul's authentic longing, you inevitably manifest a chaotic, looping reality. You attract experiences and relationships that perfectly mirror your internal fragmentation. You encounter the exact same frustrating patterns over and over because your scattered transmission keeps linking up with similarly scattered, low-frequency probabilities. However, the moment your signal unifies, when the static of the old paradigm dies away and an authentic, razor-sharp frequency takes the helm, the quantum fabric responds in an entirely unprecedented manner. Suddenly, timelines and blessings that were completely invisible and inaccessible to your old self begin to materialize with startling speed. Soul-aligned relationships, impossible opportunities, bizarrely perfect synchronicities, and incredibly supportive circumstances begin dropping into your lap as if conjured from thin air. To your former self, these blessings truly were nowhere. They existed totally outside the receiving bandwidth of your old, fear-based energetic antenna. They floated endlessly in the quantum ether but could never anchor into your world because your frequency simply couldn't pull them down. Thus, the dissolution of your ego is not merely a psychological milestone. It is a monumental quantum event. It is a fundamental rewiring of your broadcasting system that alters, at a molecular level, what the universe is capable of assembling around you. This is exactly why individuals who successfully navigate the turbulent transition you are currently facing, those who allow their archaic shells to dissolve fully, often report that their post-transformation existence feel like they have teleported to an alternate dimension. The physical planet hasn't changed. Their signal has changed. And when your vibration shifts, the fabric of reality has no choice but to reorganize itself to match you. You are not losing your grip on life. You are simply upgrading your frequency, which fundamentally alters every single thing that is allowed to reach you. Grasping these concepts intellectually is a wonderful starting point, but true alchemy requires embodiment. Your energetic field does not comprehend mental concepts. It exclusively speaks the primal, bodily language of felt sensation. Therefore, I want to lead you through a direct, visceral exercise so you can actively participate in this energetic upgrade right here, right now. Please go ahead and settle into a deeply comfortable, supportive posture. If your current environment permits, place the soles of your feet firmly and flat against the earth or the floor beneath you, allowing yourself to feel the dense, grounding support of the world rising up to meet you. Allow your hands to rest gently, either resting upon your thighs or resting loosely in your lap. Rotate your wrists so that your palms are facing upward toward the sky. Understand that this physical positioning is not a posture of defeat or surrender to exhaustion. Rather, it is the ultimate physical posture of divine receptivity. By opening your hands, you are actively unsealing the borders of your auric field. Take 3 incredibly slow, deliberate, and deeply intentional breaths. Do not force the air in, and do not make this a performative or dramatic exercise. Simply draw the breath in softly and slowly. Focus entirely on ensuring that every single exhalation is noticeably longer and more prolonged than the inhalation that preceded it. There is a precise biological reason for this. A prolonged exhale acts as a direct command to your parasympathetic nervous system. It immediately activates the specific sector of your physiology responsible for deep rest, total restoration, and maximum energetic receptivity. With every long exhale, consciously invite your physical vessel to soften. Deliberately locate and release the tight grip within your jawline. Drop your shoulders away from your ears and allow the rigid muscles of your stomach to completely relax. Through these simple actions, you are manually constructing the exact physiological environment required for your electromagnetic field to achieve total coherence. Now, gently shepherd your awareness directly to the center of your chest. I do not necessarily mean the physical organ of your heart, but rather the energetic epicenter of your entire being. If it helps anchor your focus, gently rest one of your hands over this area. I am now going to ask you to perform an action that sounds remarkably simple, yet holds earth-shattering power at the quantum level. I want you to imagine that your lungs are located directly in the center of your chest and begin to breathe as if the air is actively entering and exiting directly through your heart center. Inhale pure vitality through your heart. Exhale softly out through your heart. Allow this specific rhythm to become effortless, deeply natural, and profoundly warm. As you maintain this heart-centered breathing, I want you to summon a memory, a person, or a concept that triggers a feeling of absolute, unadulterated appreciation within you. Do not choose something that you feel obligated or conditioned to be grateful for. Choose something that, the moment your mind brushes against it, sparks a genuine, undeniable physical sensation of warmth, profound gratitude, or pure love inside your chest. It could be the face of a loved one. It might be a fleeting, beautiful memory. It could be as wonderfully simple as the memory of golden sunlight warming your bare skin, the profound relief of finally being deeply understood by a friend, or a flash of a moment when you felt utterly, unapologetically yourself. Whatever image or sensation rises to the surface, embrace it. Let it pool and expand within your chest cavity. Give it permission to glow and radiate outward. Understand the magnitude of what you are achieving right now. You are actively, manually generating heart coherence. You are forcing your biological generator to emit a beautifully smooth, highly structured, and perfectly rhythmic electromagnetic pulse from your core. This newly minted, highly organized energy field is currently transmitting a brand new signal out into the cosmos. It is no longer broadcasting the static noise of your former self. It has ceased the chaotic, fragmented transmission born from warring anxieties, societal fears, and outdated survival tactics. Instead, it is projecting a beam of genuine resonance, of authentic, loving warmth. It is broadcasting the pure, unadulterated frequency of your soul. I urge you to truly feel that glowing heat in your chest at this very moment. Track its movement as it pushes outward past your skin. Recognize that this sensation is not imaginary. It is a tangible, measurable, physical reality. Acknowledge that this invisible wave of energy is currently pushing several feet outward into the physical space surrounding you in every conceivable direction. It is actively making contact with the quantum field, and it is actively dictating which cosmic possibilities are permitted to enter your reality in this exact millisecond. Now, we must step into the deeper, architectural layer of this practice. While your aura is suspended in this elevated, highly coherent state of warmth, I want you to establish a firm intention. I am not asking you to make a wish or to blindly hope for a better future. I am asking you to make an ironclad energetic declaration, a permanent resetting of your frequency. Crucially, you must internally phrase this declaration not as a plea for something you lack, but as an absolute statement of something you currently are. The infinite quantum field is entirely deaf to the vibration of wanting or needing. It only ever responds to the vibration of being. Reality collapses exclusively around the exact energetic signature you are emitting right now, not the signal you hope to achieve a decade from now. Therefore, keep your hand pressed firmly against your heart center, breathe deeply, and allow the absolute truth of this statement to reverberate through every cell of your body and every inch of your aura. I am currently immersed in the divine process of crystallizing into my highest, most coherent self. The archaic structures of my past are actively dissolving, and I accept their departure with absolute grace. I am the physical embodiment of the imaginal cells springing to life. The frequency of the butterfly is actively forming within me. The entity I am rapidly becoming is infinitely more luminous, profoundly more authentic, and vastly more powerful than the shell I am leaving behind. I am completely secure within this transition. I am divinely protected throughout this metamorphosis. At this exact moment, with this very breath, the entire quantum matrix is eagerly rearranging itself to perfectly match my new, elevated vibration. Do not merely analyze these words with your intellect. You must feel them. Feel the weight and truth of that declaration echoing through your chest, vibrating outward through your entire electromagnetic sphere, and permanently altering the atmosphere around you. That visceral feeling, that warmth, that sudden expansiveness, that quiet, unshakable confidence is your newly established signal. It is the precise frequency of your ultimate emergence. And understand this: every single second you intentionally dwell within that feeling, you are cementing this new, coherent vibration deeper and more permanently into your energetic architecture. Your auric field recognizes this truth. Your internal illumination is switched on. In truth, it has never been extinguished. But in this specific moment, it is blazing with a clarity and a unified coherence that you have never previously achieved. Now, we must dive even further into the intricate mechanics of what your internal light is actually doing behind the scenes during this intense threshold. There are hidden, complex layers to this cycle of energetic death and rebirth that the vast majority of humanity goes to their graves completely unaware of. Once you truly comprehend these layers, once you witness the exact quantum engineering occurring beneath the surface of your life, all of the confusion evaporates. The paralyzing fear morphs into profound awe, and you gain the ability to pilot your spiritual evolution with a level of mastery and clarity that will fundamentally change the trajectory of your existence. The very first layer of this process is a phenomenon I refer to as the frequency gap. Whenever a human soul transitions from one identity framework to a higher one, there inevitably exists a purgatory-like phase. During this window, the gravitational pull of the old frequency has significantly deteriorated, yet the new upgraded frequency has not quite finished anchoring itself into physical reality. Your former signal is actively bleeding out and losing its coherence. The emerging vibration within you is actively weaving itself together, yet it lacks the dense solidity of a fully matured, energetic state. It is within this exact void, this nebulous, liminal corridor suspended squarely between your past and your future, that you will inevitably encounter a sensation of profound, almost dizzying disorientation. Absolutely nothing seems to fit correctly anymore. Your former existence feels like a garment several sizes too small, while the beautiful life waiting for you is still an abstract concept that hasn't fully landed in the physical realm. You will likely find yourself navigating social gatherings that used to feel entirely effortless, only to feel like a total stranger in your own skin. When well-meaning people ask you standard, everyday questions like, "What do you do for a living?" or "What are your goals?" you might completely draw a blank. The heavily scripted answers you relied upon for decades suddenly taste like ash in your mouth, entirely stripped of their truth, yet the specific vocabulary required to articulate your new, evolving reality hasn't even been invented yet. I refer to this precise phenomenon as the frequency gap. I need you to understand deep in your bones that this feeling of being utterly lost is not a red flag warning you of a mistake. On the contrary, it is the ultimate validation that your metamorphosis is genuine. It proves that the archaic scaffolding of your past has completely shattered, clearing out the necessary energetic real estate for a much higher paradigm to take root. The frequency gap is the undeniable, energetic receipt of your true evolution. However, there is a massive trap hidden within this void, a misstep that the vast majority of humanity makes, which aggressively throttles their spiritual momentum. Please pay close attention to this, as it directly applies to the exact threshold you are standing on right now. While wandering through the shadows of the frequency gap, the psychological urge to sprint backward into the arms of your old programming is completely overwhelming. Because the sensation of ego death closely mimics genuine grief, you will be heavily tempted to desperately tape the shattered pieces of your former identity back together. You will feel a powerful gravitational pull to reconnect with toxic relationships that no longer match your soul's pitch, to resurrect dead habits that poison your potential, and to squeeze yourself back into an identity that practically suffocates you. Why? Simply because they are known quantities. In the terrifying face of the vast unknown, the human ego will always prefer the predictable agony of the familiar over the unpredictable magic of the void. But you must realize the catastrophic quantum consequences of surrendering to that regression. The moment you reach backward to coddle those expired patterns, you aggressively sabotage the crystallization of your new auric coherence. You end up blasting a schizophrenic, highly conflicted broadcast out into the cosmic matrix. One frequency of your aura is screaming, "I am ready to evolve. I am stepping into my highest power," while another dense, fearful vibration is simultaneously whispering, "Wait, I am terrified. Let me stay exactly as I was." The infinite quantum field, which only operates as an impartial mirror to your entire energetic output, receives this garbled, messy transmission, and has no choice but to manifest equally garbled, chaotic circumstances in your physical world. The beautiful, unprecedented timelines that were just inches away from materializing suddenly dissolve back into the realm of mere potential. The archaic loops re-anchor themselves into your reality, and you will inevitably wake up months or even years down the line, staring down the exact same painful spiritual crisis. The universe demands coherence, and your suppressed authenticity will eventually tear down those false walls again and again until you finally get it right. Therefore, the frequency gap is never a battlefield you retreat from. It is a sacred corridor you must boldly march through with razor-sharp consciousness and fierce, unwavering intention. How exactly do you accomplish this? While stationed in the gap, your mission is not to desperately hunt for logical certainty or sketch out a 10-year plan. Your singular task is to build a profound comfort with the raw sensation of becoming. You must manually teach your nervous system to feel entirely safe within the trembling vibration of transition itself. This metamorphosis is not a math equation waiting to be solved. It is an active state of existence that must be fiercely inhabited with an abundance of presence, unconditional warmth, and radical self-grace. Translated into practical action, this means your absolute highest priority every single day is generating heart coherence. Forget trying to intellectualize your next career move. Stop trying to force a premature definition onto your newly forming identity. Cease attempting to rip open the chrysalis before the butterfly has fully developed its wings. Instead, dedicate your energy to manually generating the electromagnetic frequency of profound gratitude, radiant warmth, and fearless vulnerability. That specific, loving resonance is the exact quantum soil required for your new self to bloom. You cannot outthink the frequency gap with your logic. You must unconditionally radiate your way through it with your heart. Once you learn to navigate the gap, you will immediately encounter the second crucial phase of this energetic evolution, an intense period I refer to as the resonance purge. As your personal vibration begins to dramatically elevate and your auric field successfully locks into a new, higher harmonic structure, a seemingly violent sequence of events will detonate in your external reality. Initially, it will look exactly like a total collapse of your world. Friendships and partnerships that were forged in the fires of your old, unhealed frequencies will suddenly feel incredibly dense, hollow, or fundamentally incompatible. Physical spaces and work environments that used to perfectly align with your old energetic baseline will suddenly induce a feeling of severe claustrophobia or deep psychic drain. Everyday routines, dietary choices, and even the entertainment you consume will abruptly lose their flavor. Or worse, actively repulse your nervous system. Simultaneously, career paths and goals that used to ignite a fire in your belly will leave you entirely apathetic. But as the old dies, the new rushes in. Unfamiliar people, foreign environments, radical concepts, and wildly unexpected opportunities will start manifesting in your life, pulling you toward them with a magnetic resonance you cannot logically explain. I promise you, none of this is a random stroke of bad luck or mere coincidence. This is the resonance purge in full effect, and it stands as the most concrete, undeniable proof that your spiritual transition is absolutely real, and your newly upgraded frequency is successfully anchoring into the physical plane. To view this through the clinical lens of quantum mechanics, your electromagnetic field functions exactly like a massive radio tower broadcasting a continuous signal across the universe. By the unwavering laws of physics, a broadcast can only summon entities that are perfectly tuned to its specific channel, while simultaneously and violently rejecting anything operating on a discordant wavelength. The moment you radically alter your baseline frequency, you fundamentally rewrite the entire magnetic landscape of your existence. The entities, habits, and environments that vibrated in perfect harmony with your previous, lower-dimensional signal are beginning to actively shear away from your reality. This detachment is not a punishment, nor does it imply these things were inherently evil or fundamentally incorrect. Rather, it is a simple matter of quantum physics. They can no longer lock into the upgraded vibrational frequency you are currently radiating. Conversely, everything that genuinely resonates with your newly adopted signal is magnetically pulled into your orbit, summoned instantly by the unyielding law of quantum resonance. Yes, this massive energetic shedding will frequently masquerade as a devastating loss. It will absolutely look and feel as though the very architecture of your existence is being violently torn down to the studs. And truthfully, in a very literal sense, it is. But you must grasp this vital distinction. It is not the destruction of your true life. It is the necessary demolition of a life that was custom built for a frequency you no longer possess. What is silently constructing itself in the newly cleared space, what is currently materializing just at the periphery of your auric field, is a reality perfectly calibrated to your new state of profound coherence. You are manifesting soul-aligned connections, miraculous opportunities, and expansive circumstances that reflect the unadulterated truth of your spirit, rather than the heavily conditioned avatar you were trained to play. You must cultivate an unshakable trust in this resonance purge. Lean into the shedding, even when the transition physically aches, even when the things tumbling out of your life were deeply cherished, heavily relied upon, or painstakingly built over decades of hard work. If something is actively fading from your reality, It is simply because your expansive energy field has violently outgrown its container. Rest assured, the magnificent elements arriving to fill that void will be infinitely more resonant, deeply nourishing, and flawlessly aligned with the radiant authenticity of your unfolding soul. You have been emitting a brilliant light this entire time. Now, your field is fiercely curating your external world, selecting only those elements capable of actually holding, reflecting, and honoring your immense luminosity. This brings us to the third crucial layer of this energetic metamorphosis, a phase I refer to as the identity void. Without a doubt, this is the most dizzying, psychologically taxing terrain of the entire transition. It is the specific juncture that drives individuals into a state of sheer panic, sending them sprinting toward therapy couches and furiously scouring the self-help aisles for an emergency lifeline. The identity void is the terrifying sensation of absolute anonymity within your own consciousness. You reach inward to grasp your familiar sense of self, only to find a vast, formless expanse. It is not exactly an empty black hole, but rather an undefined, shapeless fog, an essence that completely lacks a title, a boundary, or a comfortable, familiar storyline. To the human ego, this void is the ultimate horror. The ego's sole directive, its entire biological reason for existing, is to fiercely protect a highly defined, deeply coherent sense of identity. It thrives on stable narratives and predictable labels. When the archaic storyline dissolves into the ether and the old definitions cease to hold any truth, the ego perceives this formlessness as a literal death sentence. In an act of sheer survival, it violently panics. It flails wildly, desperately clawing at any available structure, attempting to latch onto any familiar label or rigid certainty. To the conditioned mind, a lack of form equates to total annihilation. However, looking at the identity void through the objective lens of your electromagnetic field reveals a completely different reality. The identity void does not signify the absence of your soul. Rather, it marks the glorious eradication of the false self. It is the breathtaking clearing that emerges when the artificial persona, the heavy armor forged from societal expectations, childhood fears, and a desperate need to fit in finally melts away, exposing the pure, radiant energy grid humming beneath it. What you are encountering in this space is your authentic, foundational electromagnetic signature. It is the primordial frequency that thrived long before the world taught you to mute your brilliance. It is the pristine signal you carried before you surgically altered your spirit to comfortably fit inside the tiny boxes others constructed for you. Inside this void, you are not touching a barren wasteland. You are making direct contact with your original frequency. It is the unmediated, unfiltered, unaltered truth of your existence, completely untainted by the desperate need to be deemed acceptable, secure, or easily understood by the masses. Yes, it is incredibly raw. Yes, it is formless. And yes, it will trigger a level of profound discomfort that your carefully manicured, artificial self never had to endure. Yet, it possesses a depth of reality and truth that your constructed identity could never possibly achieve. Out of this raw, amorphous, original vibration, an absolute miracle is preparing to hatch. You are not building a new identity from the outside and piecing together external validations and societal markers like you did in the past. Instead, an entirely organic identity is sprouting from the inside out. It is blooming directly from the core signal, from your authentic frequency, from the very imaginal cells of your highest truth. This is the literal definition of spiritual rebirth. The goal is not to morph into a completely different person. The ultimate goal is to finally become a genuinely real person. To illustrate this, let me share the story of a man named Elias. For 37 years, Elias had masterfully played the exact role his family demanded of him. He was the anchor, the ultra-responsible caretaker, the highly capable problem solver who single-handedly kept the chaotic pieces of everyone else's lives glued together. He had meticulously forged an identity so incredibly dense, reliable, and predictable that everyone in his orbit referred to him as the Rock. For decades, he wore that heavy label as his proudest badge of honor. He found his worth in being the immovable force, the man who never flinched, the one individual who was absolutely immune to falling apart. Then, the inevitable happened. His father passed away. Suddenly, a massive, unrepairable fracture split right down the center of his solid foundation. It wasn't merely the grief that cracked him. He had mathematically anticipated the grief. He had even systematically prepared for the emotional fallout with the same methodical, careful precision he applied to every other aspect of his rigid life. What completely blindsided him, however, was the profound, terrifying question that shadowed the grief, a question that started as a subtle whisper before erupting into a deafening, urgent roar. The haunting question, echoing in the aftermath of his father's passing, had absolutely nothing to do with the man who had just died. The terrifying inquiry was aimed entirely at his own reflection. The question was brutal in its profound simplicity. If I am no longer the immovable monolith, if I cease to be the human glue holding everyone else's shattered pieces together, if I permanently strip away every single theatrical mask I have ever worn, every utilitarian function I have meticulously served, and every label society has slapped upon my chest, what exactly remains? For agonizing weeks, Elias dwelled within the hollow echo of that inquiry. The only response the universe provided was the chilling expanse of the identity void. He found only formlessness, a deafening, heavy silence, lingering in the exact space where he desperately anticipated finding a soul. He later confessed to me that he had never known such paralyzing terror in his entire existence. He wasn't afraid of physical mortality, nor did he fear financial ruin or any of the external catastrophes he used to anxiously monitor. His absolute worst nightmare was the creeping realization that beneath the heavy armor of his responsibilities, there might actually be zero substance. He was terrified that the Rock was the entirety of his existence, that if you, driven by this sheer existential dread, Elias almost relapsed. He hovered dangerously close to reconstructing the prison of his previous identity. He was mere inches away from throwing himself violently back into the role of the stoic caretaker, desperate to pack every vacant corner of his life with acts of reliability and performative strength. He wanted to do this simply to numb the pain, to escape the agonizing, breathless expanse of the void. He almost successfully slammed the door on his own magnificent spiritual evolution, but miraculously, he held his ground. And this is exactly how he survived. Buried deep within the absolute center of that void, during a moment of sheer, unadulterated disorientation, a sensation washed over him. It was not a logical realization. It was not an intellectual philosophy. It was a purely visceral feeling, a profound, radiant thermal hum ignited directly within his chest cavity, a warmth that had absolutely zero connection to being productive, stoic, or dependable. It was simply there, pulsating quietly underneath the rubble of his demolished roles, underneath the heavy machinery of his engineered persona. He described this sensation to me as being identical to the very first golden afternoon of spring breaking through the frost of a grueling, decades-long winter. It felt like a buried treasure that had been waiting patiently for nearly 40 years just to be acknowledged. Elias didn't try to frantically categorize it. He resisted the ego's urge to slap a label on it, weaponize it, or turn it into a tool for others. He simply allowed it to exist, and he sat quietly in its glow. By simply remaining present with that internal heat, by refusing to commodify his own energy, he experienced a life-altering epiphany. For the first time since he was born, he realized he was infinitely more than the chores he performed. He discovered that beneath the cold, hardened exterior of the Rock, there was a vibrant, breathing, luminous ember that had been burning all along, heavily suffocated beneath the crushing gravity of his artificial identity. That specific, glowing sensation was his uncorrupted, authentic frequency. It was his primordial signal, the one that had been quietly broadcasting on a muted, suppressed bandwidth beneath his childhood conditioning for 37 years. Only within the total destruction of his old ego did that beautiful frequency finally have the oxygen required to flare into existence. Following this breakthrough, Elias did not magically mutate into a stranger. Rather, he blossomed into a vastly expanded iteration of himself. He retained the beautiful facets of his character, the deep care, the incredible reliability, the profound capacity to hold space for those in pain. However, the energetic fuel source for these actions had completely shifted. He was no longer acting out of a desperate, terrified need to avoid being deemed useless. His actions were now propelled by the overflowing, genuine warmth of a man who had finally located his own internal light. He realized his internal fire was robust enough to warm those shivering around him without ever dimming his own flame. His entire electromagnetic field mutated. Everyone in his immediate environment noticed the shift instantly. He was no longer perceived as a cold, dense rock. He had transformed into a localized sun. His presence now actively radiated a nourishing heat, rather than just providing a static, heavy wall to lean against. He began to organically illuminate the spaces he entered, rather than exhausting himself trying to micromanage them. This, my friend, is the breathtaking miracle the identity void unlocks. It is never the tragic loss of your spirit. It is the ultimate excavation of the divine self that was permanently buried beneath the counterfeit one. Your subtle body intrinsically understands this truth. Your personal aura recognizes it deeply. That beautiful rush of warmth you generated in your chest during our breathing exercise a few moments ago, that is your original signal. That is your raw frequency, stripped of all earthly conditioning. That exact feeling is the bedrock upon which your new harmonic coherence is currently being constructed. Let us pause right here, as I am profoundly curious and genuinely want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a distinct moment in your own journey where you physically felt that internal warmth suddenly switch on? A moment where you consciously recognized that your personal light was altering the temperature and mood of the room? Have you ever had a stranger or a loved one react to your energetic presence in a way that left you stunned? Please, share your stories with me in the comments below. Your personal testimonies are vital threads in the collective tapestry of this field. Now, it is time to plunge into the absolute deepest waters of this transmission. We are entering a layer of spiritual transition that the vast majority of humanity never lives to witness, and truthfully, it is the most miraculous phase of all. I refer to this phenomenon as the quantum signature upgrade. When a human being successfully navigates a genuine energetic metamorphosis, when the obsolete frequency fully disintegrates and the pristine coherence completely crystallizes, something unimaginably profound occurs at the microscopic level of reality. It transcends a mere upgrade in your emotional broadcasting system. The actual, foundational quantum signature of your soul undergoes a complete rewrite. And when your quantum signature changes, your fundamental relationship with the entire fabric of the universe is permanently altered. Let us take a moment to decode exactly what I mean when I use the phrase quantum signature. In the advanced realms of physics, every single material system, and that absolutely includes the biological, mental, and spiritual architecture of a human being, possesses what scientists formally refer to as a quantum state. This state isn't a solid, static, physical object. Rather, it is a complex, mathematical landscape that holds the precise probabilities of every single potential outcome, timeline, and destiny that system could possibly experience. What is truly mind-bending is that this quantum state is intimately intertwined with, and actively encoded directly into, the electromagnetic field that the given system generates. Translating this to your human experience, your personal aura, that majestic, heart-powered biomagnetic sphere we have been exploring, is not merely an invisible bubble of emotion pushing outward into the room. It is the literal, real-time expression of your quantum probability matrix. It is the living map of what is statistically possible and what is strictly impossible for your life at a subatomic level. The moment your quantum signature undergoes a massive upgrade, when your internal energy grid successfully harmonizes around a fresh, crystalline frequency, the entire landscape of your potential destinies is instantly and violently rewritten. Suddenly, Life paths that were statistically impossible or entirely inaccessible under your old vibration transition into absolute inevitabilities. Timelines that your former, fragmented signal lacked the power to collapse into reality suddenly begin solidifying right before your eyes. The cosmic bandwidth of what the universe is permitted to physically construct in your immediate vicinity expands exponentially. This is the exact reason why individuals who successfully weather the storm of profound spiritual alchemy almost universally claim their new reality feels downright miraculous. The immutable laws of physics have not been magically suspended. Rather, the underlying probability matrix has shifted so dramatically that what the untrained eye calls a miracle, a lucky coincidence, or a bizarre synchronicity is actually just the organic, mathematical byproduct of a newly upgraded quantum signature interfacing perfectly with the infinite cosmos. Your former vibration was simply too dense to pull these blessings from the ether. Your new vibration does so effortlessly, and to an outside observer, it looks exactly like sorcery. Let me paint a very practical picture of how this unfolds in your waking life. Following a legitimate energetic rebirth, people almost always report being flooded by a tidal wave of breathtaking synchronicities. These are not random accidents. They are deeply orchestrated, highly meaningful alignments that feel divinely choreographed. It looks like the exact right mentor crossing your path precisely when you need guidance. It is the dream opportunity, materializing out of thin air, matching your new passions flawlessly. It is the specific book tumbling off a library shelf right at your feet, holding the exact sentence your soul needed to read. It is a casual conversation with a stranger that magically answers the agonizing question you were weeping over just hours before. It is a heavy, rusted door locking shut behind you, only for a golden gateway to swing wide open in front of you a millisecond later. Make no mistake, none of this is a random stroke of luck. This is the infinite quantum matrix eagerly answering the call of your newly stabilized signal. It is your fresh, coherent broadcast actively magneticizing its corresponding realities out from the void of infinite potential. This is your upgraded quantum signature hard at work. But here is a severe, non-negotiable truth you absolutely must engrave upon your heart as you navigate the remainder of your transition. These stunning synchronicities, these divine alignments, and these miraculous new possibilities are utterly blind to your old frequency. They simply cannot locate the past version of you. They are not vibrationally matched to your historical trauma or your expired coping mechanisms. Therefore, every single minute you spend indulging the temptation to resurrect your old persona, every hour you spend gripping the ghost of who you used to be, and every day you desperately attempt to glue the shattered pieces of your old identity back together out of sheer panic, you are actively barricading the door against the very miracles your new frequency has already summoned. The universe has already dispatched the blessings. The infinite field is already bending to deliver them. The new timelines are actively collapsing in your direction right now, but they will remain suspended in orbit, unable to touch down, until your broadcast becomes clear and sustained enough to act as a proper landing pad. This brings us back to the vital practice of cultivating heart coherence, generating that profound, radiant sensation of genuine gratitude, unconditional openness, and profound warmth within your chest is not merely a feel-good meditation exercise to calm your nerves. It is arguably the most fiercely practical, highly pragmatic action you can possibly take right now. By deliberately locking into that vibration, you are manually stabilizing your new quantum antenna. You are holding the harmonic blueprint steady enough and for a long enough duration that the quantum field can actually do its job and assemble your new reality around it. Take a second to assess your own auric field at this very moment. Tune in. What is currently pulsing outward from your core? Are you radiating the expansive, golden warmth of your newly formed coherence? Or can you feel the dense, jagged static of old anxieties trying to claw their way back to the surface? Whatever you locate in that space, do not judge it. Meet it with an overwhelming wave of grace and compassion. Recognize that even the heavy panic, the lingering grief, and the sharp fear are all vital, expected components of this sacred transition. They are simply the exhaust fumes of the old pattern, permanently evaporating. When you envelop those lower emotions in compassion rather than fighting them with bitter resistance, you drastically accelerate their departure. You create the ultimate fertile soil for your new coherence to permanently drop its anchor. You do not battle your way to the finish line of a spiritual awakening. You elegantly and unconditionally radiate your way through it. Now, I need to address a very specific, deeply complex aspect of this journey that I know is heavily weighing on the hearts of many of you currently navigating this transition. Now, we must address an incredibly delicate facet of this journey. I want to speak to this specific truth with an overwhelming amount of tenderness, because it is an experience that demands absolute reverence. We need to talk about the profound, aching grief of watching your former identity die. There is a glaring omission in the modern, mainstream dialogue surrounding spiritual awakening and personal transformation. Society loves to heavily romanticize the rebirth, but it almost entirely ignores the funeral that must precede it. When the archaic version of you finally perishes, when the outdated survival patterns permanently dissolve into the ether, and when the heavy mask of your past identity falls to the floor, a very real bereavement takes place. This is not merely a fleeting moment of psychological discomfort, a brief wave of confusion, or a temporary bout of brain fog. This is a legitimate, visceral period of mourning. You are mourning the actual life you navigated while confined within that old frequency. You are grieving the relationships and friendships that were intricately woven around that lower vibration. You are shedding tears for the comfortable certainties, the predictable routines, and the familiar walls of the cage you used to call home. Most importantly, you are mourning the character you played for so long, even if that past version of you was heavily suffocating your potential, even if that identity was constructed entirely out of trauma, fear, and a desperate need to please others. And even if that persona was never authentically yours in the first place, you are still entirely permitted to grieve its departure. You are allowed to weep for the old you, simultaneously as you throw open the doors to welcome the new you. In truth, this sorrow is a fundamental, non-negotiable component of the quantum process. It is the literal sensation of an energetic release. When you grant yourself permission to fully inhabit this sorrow, when you refuse to bury it, smother it, rush past it, or shame yourself for feeling a sense of loss, the expired frequency drains out of your nervous system much more completely. The auric field is scoured and purified. Consequently, the newly arriving coherence can crystallize much more cleanly and powerfully within the pristine vacuum that your grief has carved out. I want you to conceptualize it through this lens. The heavy sadness you feel is simply your electromagnetic field whispering a final goodbye. It is the energetic signature of your historical self reaching the absolute end of its narrative arc, discharging its final remnants of electrical tension and beautifully sweeping the floor to prepare the temple for what arrives next. When you honor this mourning period, when you cradle it with the vast, unconditional compassion it rightly deserves, you are absolutely not stunting your spiritual growth or pulling yourself backward. Quite the opposite. You are finalizing the quantum transition with profound integrity and absolute wholeness. You are demonstrating a deep, mature respect for the grueling miles you walked as the person you are currently leaving behind in the dust. Please hear this. The past version of you successfully transported you to this exact threshold. That former identity endured nightmares, survived heartbreaks, and navigated treacherous storms that your newly emerging, upgraded self will never, ever have to face. That old you painstakingly manufactured the grit, the profound wisdom, and the ironclad resilience that the new you is about to utilize in magnificent ways the old you could never have fathomed. Your past self does not deserve your resentment. It deserves your deepest, most profound gratitude. So, even as you actively command the old patterns to release, even as you watch the historical frequency dissolve into the quantum void, you must pause to thank the expired self. Weep for it, honor it, and only then allow the new, majestic coherence to flood into the wide-open space that has been surrendered. This is not a display of emotional weakness. This is, without question, the most powerful, architecturally crucial action you can perform to secure your transition. To facilitate this, I want to offer you a second practical exercise. This specific meditation is designed entirely to hold the grief of the dying self. It is a space for the tender, brutally honest acknowledgement of what is fading away, ensuring your auric field can flush itself out completely. Once again, anchor yourself in total stillness. Begin to cycle your breath directly through your heart center. If the glowing warmth from our previous exercise returns, welcome it. However, if what rises to the surface this time is a dense sorrow, a heavy ache, or a profound wave of grief settling into your chest cavity, I implore you to let it exist. Do not forcefully shove it back down into the dark. Do not slap a mask of toxic positivity over it. Allow whatever raw truth is currently moving through your field to simply be there. Now, using your mind's eye, I want you to clearly envision the specific version of yourself that is currently expiring. Look directly at the old identity, the dissolving pattern, the tired persona. Look at them not with a critical eye, and not necessarily with the eagerness to push them out the door, though a sense of relief is perfectly natural, but rather, look at them with the overwhelming empathy you would offer an exhausted soldier who has fought a brutal, decades-long war and is finally, rightfully, being granted permission to lay down their weapons and sleep. Look closely at this former self. Witness the immense burdens they carried on their shoulders. Acknowledge the unspeakable things they managed to survive. Look at the fortresses they built, the boundaries they defended, and the painful sacrifices they made purely to keep your physical and emotional bodies safe in a harsh world. And now, from the radiant warmth of your newly coherent heart field, from the pure, elevated, electromagnetic broadcast of unconditional grace, I want you to offer that tired version of yourself this final declaration. Thank you. You accomplished exactly what you were created to do. You carried the agonizing weight I was not strong enough to drop. You shielded me and kept me alive when survival was my only goal. You built the necessary armor. I see your exhaustion, and I honor your service. But now, I am entirely ready for the next chapter. I am ready to carry a much lighter, more beautiful frequency. I am ready to radiate my absolute truth. Your watch has ended. You are officially relieved of your duties. You can finally rest. You can surrender. Please understand, I am not abandoning you in the dark. I am successfully completing your mission. I am stepping boldly into the beautiful existence that your survival made possible. Allow the sheer gravity of those words to reverberate through your chest bone. Feel the warm, heavy wash of that supreme gratitude and absolute release rippling outward across your entire auric field. If the tears begin to fall, surrender to them completely. Do not wipe them away in frustration. Those tears are the literal, physical manifestation of your quantum field purging its static. They are the dense, historical charge permanently exiting your nervous system. They are the sound of space tearing open. And as that expansive new void opens up inside of you, consciously breathe into it. Inhale pure warmth directly into the emptiness. Exhale the brilliant signal of your new coherence straight into the sacred vacancy that the old trauma has left behind. Understand that this newly emptied space is incredibly sacred. That space is the alchemical womb. That space is the very chrysalis where your new, multi-dimensional wings are currently taking shape. Your internal light is blazing perfectly. In truth, it has never been turned off. Right at this very millisecond, your internal radiance is achieving a level of structural coherence, brilliant luminosity, and unapologetic authenticity that you have never previously touched in this lifetime. Now, we must pivot to examine how this internal alchemy profoundly impacts the external cast of characters currently occupying your reality. Understanding the social mechanics of auric transition is a hidden layer of spiritual science that eludes the masses. Grasping this specific concept will instantly demystify the bizarre, sometimes agonizing interpersonal dynamics you are currently navigating. Whenever you undergo a legitimate energetic metamorphosis, when your baseline vibration elevates and your quantum grid undergoes a massive restructuring, the human beings in your immediate orbit will instinctively react to that shift in one of three distinct ways. Mastering these three categories of response will empower you to move through your evolving relationships with a profound sense of clarity and unconditional compassion, far surpassing the emotional turbulence most people suffer during a spiritual awakening. The first category of response is harmonic resonance. Certain individuals in your life will subconsciously detect the pristine frequency bubbling to the surface of your aura, and they will be powerfully magnetized toward it. You will notice them organically drawing closer to you during this chapter. They will sense an invisible lightness or an elevated purity in your energy field, finding it deeply attractive, profoundly inspiring, or incredibly soothing to their own nervous systems. These are the souls whose personal energetic signatures are already vibrating at, or are actively ascending toward the exact dimensional plane you are currently entering. They are your quantum allies in this evolution. They will likely lack the scientific or spiritual vocabulary to explain this invisible gravitational pull. They won't speak in terms of frequencies. Instead, they will simply remark, "There is just something so beautiful about your energy lately," or, "I suddenly feel like I can bare my entire soul to you without judgment." Listen closely to these people. They are acting as physical mirrors, providing tangible, real-world evidence that your new coherent frequency is actively broadcasting and successfully landing in the physical realm. The second, and undoubtedly the most difficult response to endure, is energetic resistance. A specific faction of your social circle will feel the tectonic plates of your vibration shifting, and they will subconsciously fight it tooth and nail. They likely possess zero conscious awareness of quantum mechanics or spiritual shedding, but their nervous systems absolutely register the stark alteration in your auric field. This unfamiliarity breeds severe discomfort, acute anxiety, and frequently outright hostility within them. They will desperately attempt to throw a lasso around you and drag you backward into your expired paradigm. They might actively criticize your newfound boundaries, weaponizing guilt by claiming you are acting out of character, calling you selfish, or openly declaring that they vastly preferred the old version of you. They might ice you out with silence, become suffocatingly demanding, or intentionally orchestrate drama to trigger your historical traumas, all in a subconscious bid to force you back into your old, predictable frequency. You must understand this clearly. This behavior is rarely born from pure, intentional malice. It is an act of desperate, energetic self-preservation. These individuals had anchored their own auras to the heavy, predictable density of your former self. Your old signal, even if it was born from trauma, was incredibly familiar and therefore safe to their ego. Your new, expansive signal is utterly foreign, and to a nervous system accustomed to your past behavior, a foreign frequency feels like an existential threat. They are not genuinely rejecting the beautiful soul you are becoming. They are simply panicking over the loss of the specific frequency they relied upon for their own stability. I urge you to shower them with silent compassion, but absolutely refuse to lower your vibration to appease their discomfort. Your spiritual ascension is not an act of betrayal against them. It is the highest form of integrity you can achieve. In time, some of them will regulate their nervous systems and organically elevate to match your new state. Those who cannot or will not adjust will naturally fall away. This is the exact manifestation of the resonance purge we discussed earlier. It is the universal field ruthlessly curating your environment to ensure it aligns with your highest coherence. The third and most breathtaking response is quantum revelation. There are people in your sphere, perhaps individuals you have interacted with casually for years or even decades, without ever forming a deep, seen connection, who will suddenly look at you as if meeting you for the very first time. The veil will drop. They will express sentiments like, "I had absolutely no idea you possessed this kind of depth," or, "You suddenly remind me of the exact kind of person I have spent my whole life searching for." These are the individuals whose energetic signatures were always perfectly aligned with your core truth, but they were entirely blocked by the heavy, artificial armor of your constructed persona. Now that the thick walls of your old ego are dissolving into the void, and your true, authentic signal is finally piercing through the static, they can intercept the beautiful broadcast that was buried within you all along. Treat these revelations as extraordinary cosmic gifts. They are the universe's way of winking at you, providing undeniable proof that your new coherence is not an illusion. It is vividly real, deeply visible, and already pulling soul-aligned connections directly to your doorstep. Now, I must directly and honestly address a burning, agonizing inquiry that I know is heavily occupying the minds of nearly everyone listening to this transmission. It requires brutal directness because the limbo of transition is undeniably exhausting. I need to address the desperate question of timing. You are silently screaming. How long does this grueling excavation take? When does the glorious, stabilized new identity finally materialize? When does the terrifying frequency gap permanently slam shut? At what exact coordinate in time do these promised miraculous possibilities physically land in my lap? The absolute truth, the cold, hard, mathematically sound answer based strictly on the laws of quantum mechanics is that the timeline of your emergence hinges almost entirely upon one singular, non-negotiable factor. It has absolutely nothing to do with how many grueling hours you meditate, the sheer volume of spiritual texts you mentally devour, or the amount of intellectual effort you exert trying to logically dissect the process. The exact speed at which your newly aligned, higher dimensional reality materializes is strictly dictated by how ruthlessly and completely you amputate the old frequency. Your new energetic coherence can only crystallize at the precise rate at which your old energetic incoherence is evicted from your nervous system. Every single second you spend coddling expired habits, desperately trying to resurrect the ghost of your past identity, or exhausting yourself by artificially pumping life into toxic relationships that have flatlined, you are actively stalling your own evolution. The delay of your new blessings is exactly equal to the amount of precious energetic capital you are foolishly investing in the old paradigm. Please understand, the universe is not punishing you or casting a moral judgment upon your actions. This is simply the mechanical reality of physics. A single energetic field cannot effectively transmit two opposing, highly conflicted frequencies at the exact same time without destroying its own structural integrity. The more violently and completely you cut the cord on your past signal, the more aggressively and beautifully your new signal will take root. This is exactly why the physical practices I have guided you through today are absolutely vital. They are not merely emotional band-aids meant to temporarily soothe your aching heart, though they certainly provide that comfort. Functionally, they are high-octane quantum acceleration mechanisms. Every single time you manually drop into a state of profound heart coherence, you are thickening the neural pathways of your new signal. Every time you refuse to suppress the heavy grief and instead allow it to tear through you and exit your physical vessel, you are violently sweeping the lingering static out of your auric field. Every instance you bravely choose to anchor into the radiant warmth of your impending future, rather than sprinting backward into the cold familiarity of your past trauma, you are drastically compressing the timeline of your metamorphosis. You are not sitting in a cosmic waiting room hoping your new life eventually calls your name. You are an active creator, continuously broadcasting that very life into existence. The sheer velocity at which your miracles arrive is mathematically proportionate to the crystal clarity and unyielding consistency of the new vibration you are projecting. This is the most empowering realization you can possibly embrace. It proves that you are not a helpless victim strapped to the slow grinding wheel of fate or circumstantial timing. You are the master architect. You are the living broadcast tower. You represent the exact gravitational center around which the infinite matrix of reality must assemble itself. Therefore, every conscious breath you take while anchored in your highest truth is a moment of aggressive, quantum-level participation in the design of your own destiny. The external world simply molds itself around the temperature of your internal radiance. That is not poetic imagery. That is the fundamental engineering of the cosmos. And you possess the ultimate dial. Now, I want to direct my words specifically to those warriors who have been suspended in this excruciating transition for what feels like an eternity. I am speaking directly to the weary souls who feel as though they have been suffocating inside the chrysalis for agonizing years, not merely a few fleeting months. I am talking to the ones who have meticulously done the shadow work, who have courageously surrendered everything they loved, who have violently purged, deeply grieved, and faithfully practiced, yet they look in the mirror and still cannot see the butterfly's wings. I am speaking to the individuals who are secretly terrified that they are the tragic anomaly, entirely stuck in the void, forever broken, and permanently trapped between worlds. I see you. I feel the crushing weight of your exhaustion. But I promise you, with absolute certainty, that your energetic field is not stalled. Your evolution is not malfunctioning. Here is the profound truth regarding your specific prolonged journey. Occasionally, the chrysalis phase is exceptionally long because the toxic root system you are actively ripping out of your soul is ancient and terrifyingly deep. You are not merely shedding a bad habit you picked up a few summers ago. You are dismantling a foundational, baseline frequency that was violently branded into your nervous system during your earliest, most vulnerable years of childhood. In many cases, you are purging heavy, ancestral trauma codes that you subconsciously inherited from your family's bloodline, long before you even possessed the cognitive ability to reject them. Energetic scars of that magnitude, frequencies buried that deep within the marrow of your bones, do not miraculously evaporate in a single season. They demand to be processed in meticulous, grueling layers. And between the excavation of each agonizing layer, your nervous system requires a mandatory period of absolute stillness to integrate the healing before it has the strength to dive down and rip out the next root. If you have been wandering through the darkness of this transition for a staggering amount of time, it is not evidence of your failure. You are currently undertaking an architectural excavation of the soul. The sheer length and brutal depth of the trauma you are clearing out is in direct proportion to the blinding luminosity of the magnificent being that is silently taking form in the void. In nature, the butterfly that demands the longest, darkest incubation period inside the cocoon is never the defective one. It is invariably the creature that emerges with the most breathtakingly complex, impossibly intricate, and vibrantly powerful wings. Your extended suffering is not proof of stagnation. It is the ultimate testament to the colossal magnitude of your impending rebirth. For those of you locked in this marathon transition, I want to offer a very specific, life-saving directive. If you have been trapped in the dark for what feels like lifetimes, the single most crucial shift you must make right now is to completely sever your habit of measuring your internal progress by observing your external reality. You must immediately cease looking around your physical life and agonizing over the fact that your material circumstances haven't miraculously upgraded yet. The laws of the quantum matrix dictate that the physical, 3D reality cannot and will not rearrange itself until your internal energetic blueprint has achieved absolute, unshakable permanence. Every single time you gaze upon your stagnant external environment, feel a crushing wave of despair, and sigh in defeat, you are instantly firing off a dense, heavy frequency of discouragement. That low vibrational signal violently clashes with the beautiful new coherence you are trying to build, effectively resetting the clock on your manifestation. Therefore, you must completely pivot your focus inward. From this moment forward, I want you to gauge your evolution strictly by monitoring the climate of your internal energy grid. Measure your success exclusively by the purity of your invisible broadcast. Ask yourself these crucial questions. How consistently can I maintain this newly constructed vibration before I get tired? Is it easier to tap into that profound, radiant heat in my chest today than it was 6 months ago? Notice how much faster the heavy waves of sorrow pass through your system without getting stuck. Pay attention to how distinctly you can hear the unadulterated, fearless voice of your soul, piercing through the dense fog of your old conditioning. These invisible, internal markers are the only legitimate indicators of your spiritual progression. If you bravely evaluate your journey through this authentic lens, you will undoubtedly realize that you have conquered far more ground than your anxious mind gives you credit for. Your auric field is actively mutating. Your new signal is gaining immense, undeniable power. Your higher coherence is solidifying beautifully. It is simply taking its time because it must match the extreme, foundational depth of the trauma you are uprooting. And hear this clearly. The very second your internal foundation is completely fortified, the moment it is strong enough to bear the weight of your new destiny, the physical world will scramble to reorganize itself around you with a velocity and absolute precision that will leave you breathless. Have unwavering faith in your energetic blueprint. Trust the agonizing depth of this process. Now, we are ready to step into the ultimate and most breathtaking echelon of this metamorphosis. I refer to this magnificent tipping point as the Radiance threshold. Every genuine spiritual evolution features this critical horizon line. It is the precise coordinate in time where your freshly minted vibration gathers enough momentum to utterly overpower the echoes of your past. It is the exact moment your aura permanently flips the switch, making the new frequency your absolute, undisputed baseline. Crossing this sacred threshold triggers a spectacular phenomenon. Your energy field becomes entirely self-generating. Let me explain. Currently, before you hit that threshold, holding on to your new vibration demands intense, exhausting mental and spiritual labor. You must consciously force yourself to practice heart coherence. You have to aggressively push away the seductive gravity of your old coping mechanisms. Your new light is absolutely real, but it is fragile. It requires constant, vigilant tending, much like guarding a small flame in a fierce windstorm. But the instant you step over the Radiance threshold, the entire dynamic violently shifts. Your new coherence suddenly runs on autopilot. The glowing heat within your chest sparks effortlessly. Your authentic essence pours out of you naturally, without a second thought. The heavy chains of your old paradigm simply snap, not because you are actively fighting them anymore, but because your new frequency has grown so blindingly strong, so fiercely real, and so undeniably you, that the lower vibrations simply cannot survive in your presence. Once you achieve this self-sustaining state, your external reality will warp and restructure itself with a speed that might genuinely shock your nervous system. Because your transmission is finally pure, unbroken, and deafeningly loud, the quantum matrix can effortlessly assemble your new life without any static interference. This is the Radiance threshold, and I promise you, you are standing mere inches away from it. Every single exercise you have engaged in during our time together has pushed you closer to this finish line. Every deliberate wave of heart-centered warmth you generated has amplified your new signal. Every tear of grief you bravely allowed to fall has sterilized your field, clearing out the old energetic debris. Every time you bravely chose the magnificent frequency of your future over the comfortable frequency of your past, you sprinted toward that threshold. You didn't just stumble into this process today. You have been fighting in the trenches for a very long time. But right here, right now, through this transmission, you have leveled up. You have plunged deeper into the mechanics of your soul than ever before. You have intentionally broadcast your new truth. You have honored your dying ego with profound grace. All of this guarantees that the Radiance threshold is rapidly approaching. When you finally cross it, when your new frequency becomes the undisputed ruler of your auric field, and the breathtaking life that matches it begins to physically materialize around you, you will instantly and tearfully understand exactly why your former self had to perish. You will look back and see the destruction not as a horrific tragedy, but as the ultimate cosmic gift. You will recognize the pain as the necessary chrysalis that birthed your absolute freedom. Before we begin to guide this profound transmission toward its conclusion, I must address a deeply vulnerable anxiety that plagues almost everyone navigating the dark night of the soul. We need to discuss the terrifying concept of your identity on the flip side of this transformation. When you are trapped in the suffocating darkness of the cocoon, the most paralyzing fear is the dread that you will emerge as a complete stranger. You are terrified that by allowing the old you to burn, you will accidentally incinerate a core, irreplaceable piece of your humanity, the very essence that makes you uniquely you. Let me confront that specific nightmare head-on, delivering pure quantum clarity wrapped in the deepest, most profound warmth. The entity that finally steps out of the ashes of a true spiritual metamorphosis is absolutely not an unfamiliar stranger. On the contrary, it is the most profoundly recognizable, intimate version of yourself you will ever encounter. Why? Because it is the pristine, untouched essence that has been silently waiting beneath decades of heavy societal programming. It is your primordial frequency. It is the uncorrupted, authentic broadcast that vibrated vibrantly long before the world convinced you to lower your volume. It is the pure energy you radiated before you were trained to contort your spirit to comfortably fit inside the tiny, suffocating boxes of other people's expectations. It is who you were before you were conditioned to project anxiety, people-pleasing, and fear rather than standing firmly in your divine truth. Once you successfully navigate your way out of this heavy transition, you will absolutely not glance over your shoulder and mourn the loss of your identity. Instead, you will experience the breathtaking realization that you have, at long last, truly discovered yourself. You will feel an immense relief, knowing you have permanently retired from acting out a theatrical role that never fit your soul. You are finally moving into the permanent, beautiful residence of the spirit you were always destined to be. It will feel exactly as though you have cranked up the master dial on the beautiful, harmonic signal that had been buried under decades of mental static and artificial noise. You will look in the mirror and recognize your own eyes with a depth of clarity you have never previously experienced. This is because the being that emerges from the chrysalis is not a brand new fabrication built from scratch. It is a magnificent, uncovering revelation. It is your foundational blueprint, finally achieving total coherence, finally surging with unshakable strength, and finally liberated to transmit its light at absolute maximum capacity. Furthermore, those who genuinely adore your soul, the individuals whose own auras naturally harmonize with your truth, will recognize this upgrade instantly. They will not view you as an alien or a stranger. They will look at you and see someone who has simply become exponentially more themselves than ever before. They will witness a soul that has finally, unapologetically, arrived in its totality. This is the glorious destination of your current evolution. You are not morphing into an unrecognizable entity. You are your original self, achieving perfect harmony. You are finally glowing. You are finally resting comfortably within the borders of your own energetic field. Your internal illumination is blazing. It has never actually been extinguished. But in this current timeline, it is growing fiercely more focused, blindingly more radiant, and wildly more authentic than at any other point in your existence. At this juncture, I want to warmly invite you to step into a sacred moment of collective unity. Please understand that this specific transmission, this digital gathering space, does not belong to you in isolation. It forms a massive, interconnected web of spiritual evolution that thousands of individuals are actively traversing at this exact second. One of the most mind-bending, empirically proven marvels of quantum mechanics is the phenomenon of shared resonance. When a multitude of human beings consciously project the exact same elevated frequency simultaneously, their individual energy fields exponentially amplify one another. A collective of harmonious auras operates with a magnitude of power that completely dwarfs the output of a solitary individual. As my voice reaches you right now, there are countless other souls absorbing these exact words who are weathering the exact same turbulent season of life as you. There are warriors currently wrapped tightly in the chrysalis. There are brave wanderers lost in the frequency gap. There are individuals actively surviving the resonance purge, staring into the terrifying identity void, and weeping through the heavy grief of their expiring egos. There are those whose toes are practically touching the radiance threshold, and every single one of them is actively broadcasting the unique, beautiful hum of their own becoming. These invisible transmissions are undeniably real. They possess measurable weight and undeniable force, and they are actively weaving together across the globe. You must internalize this. You are absolutely not navigating this terrifying transition in a vacuum. You are an integral node in a global matrix of awakening. Your personal vibration is actively strengthening theirs, and their light is actively feeding yours. In unison, we are constructing a monumental, collective coherence that holds vastly more gravitational pull than any single person could possibly conjure on their own. I gently urge you to consciously acknowledge this magnificent, unseen community right now. Allow yourself to physically absorb the comforting warmth of knowing that you are not trapped alone inside your dark cocoon. Recognize that there is a vast army of souls whose vibrations perfectly match yours. These are people who intimately comprehend the dizzying disorientation, the gut-wrenching grief, and the awe-inspiring magic of this specific chapter. They are evolving alongside you. Therefore, I want to invite you to anchor your energy in the comment section below, the digital hearth where this community convenes. Speak your truth. Tell us exactly where you currently stand on this transitional map. Describe the heavy burdens you are finally dropping. Illustrate the magnificent visions of what is currently taking shape in your life. Paint a picture of what your expired ego looked like, and share the intuitive glimpses you are catching of your upgraded self. Do this because your narrative, your unique vibration, and your ultimate emergence do not solely belong to you. They are vital threads in our collective tapestry. When you courageously share your journey, you instantly upgrade the coherence of every single person who reads your testimony. You actively participate in the quantum amplification. By sharing your singular flame, it transcends its individual boundaries. It transforms into a blazing, unified sun. Finally, let me guide you toward the core integration principle of our time together. Any profound spiritual epiphany must be deeply rooted into the physical flesh, anchored into your daily routine, and completely embodied within your auric field before it can manifest as tangible power. Here is your absolute anchor point for today. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this entire transmission, engrave this singular, life-altering truth into your consciousness. You are not losing your mind, and you are certainly not losing yourself. You are finally, undeniably finding yourself, and the universal law dictates that true discovery absolutely mandates a period of total, devastating loss first. This is not poetic spiritual fluff. This is the rigid, unyielding quantum mechanics of human evolution. The decaying architecture of your past must be violently, completely dismantled before the brilliant palace of your new coherence can ever be built. The archaic vibrations that once governed your reality must be entirely dismantled before your pristine, upgraded broadcast can successfully break through the static. The expiration of your former identity is the ultimate, non-negotiable prerequisite for your divine rebirth. This destruction is absolutely never a cosmic punishment or a senseless tragedy. It is a profoundly sacred necessity that underpins every legitimate spiritual evolution in the universe. Whenever you are violently struck by the heavy mourning of your past, you must mentally anchor yourself to this truth. That deep, weeping ache is simply your energetic grid aggressively purging its obsolete data. The vacuum it leaves behind is deeply holy ground. Right now, in that freshly emptied internal temple, your higher harmony is actively pouring the foundation for your new existence. When you find yourself stumbling blindly through the dizzying fog of the frequency gap, remind your terrified ego that this very disorientation is your undeniable proof of success. It verifies that your transition is not an illusion. The old scaffolding has genuinely collapsed enough to clear the skyline. The new signal is actively knitting itself together. You are currently incubating inside the chrysalis. Society may have conditioned you to view this agonizing stillness as a sign of failure, stagnation, or depression, but it is, in reality, the most aggressive theater of biological and spiritual architectural formation known to the cosmos. When the fierce gravitational pull of your past tries to drag you backward, when the seductive comfort of your old trauma or expired relationships beckons to you, you must brutally remind yourself of this absolute fact. Your past patterns do not possess the energetic passport required to enter your future. Those old blueprints were explicitly drafted for a timeline you have already exhausted. Your new, magnificent coherence is being meticulously engineered specifically to sustain the breathtaking life you are currently walking toward. With every single micro-decision where you deliberately select the frequency of your evolution over the frequency of your history, you forcefully yank the radiance threshold closer to your current coordinates. You are not disintegrating. You are finally aligning. And achieving absolute, unified coherence is the most devastatingly powerful state the human bioelectric field can ever master. The external matrix of reality has no choice but to construct itself directly around your internal broadcast. The entity you are rapidly evolving into possesses a luminosity and an authentic, undeniable power that makes your former self pale in comparison. I promise you, the day will soon arrive when you stand victorious on the other side of this fiery crucible. You will gaze back across the timeline, and you will feel nothing but an overwhelming, weeping gratitude for the necessary death that birthed your absolute freedom. Your historical ego is not a villain to be despised. It is the dense, nutrient-rich soil out of which your new, multidimensional wings are currently sprouting. Bow to it, whisper your deepest thanks, and release it back to the ether with profound, unconditional grace. Do you fully comprehend what is charging toward you right now? What magnificent destiny is currently bubbling within the alchemical imaginal soup of your transition? The infinite quantum field is already actively organizing the physical atoms of a life that was divinely engineered, exclusively for you. This is no longer a reality forged from the heavy lead of survival, anxiety, and people-pleasing. This is an empire constructed entirely from the gold of your unadulterated truth. It is a reality that perfectly matches the fierce, authentic song of your original, untamed spirit. That magnificent life is already hurling through time and space toward you. The quantum mechanisms are actively locking onto your upgraded transmission. The infinite wave of possibilities is continuously collapsing perfectly in your favor. Soul-aligned partnerships, unbelievable opportunities, breathtaking serendipities, and miraculously supportive circumstances are actively marching toward your immediate auric field. Your sole responsibility is to keep the transmitter completely turned on. You must fiercely guard the warmth in your chest, continue to unconditionally cradle your grief, and repeatedly evict your outdated paradigms with unwavering compassion. Demand of yourself that you fully inhabit the living, breathing vibration of your transformation with every ounce of fierce, deliberate presence you can possibly muster. Lean entirely upon the wisdom of your electromagnetic field. Surrender to the sheer brilliance of your internal illumination. Cultivate an absolute, ironclad faith in the cosmic choreography that dragged you exactly to this digital coordinate to absorb this precise transmission at this exact millisecond. Your energetic grid already knew. Your aura magnetically pulled this knowledge into your reality because you had finally reached the evolutionary milestone required to digest this profound truth. You were finally ready to strip away the illusion of a crisis and recognize the undeniable holiness of the chrysalis. You were ready to stop mourning a loss and start celebrating a genesis. You were prepared to see past the terrifying illusion of ego death and witness the glorious, messy, beautiful birth of the most breathtakingly coherent, hyper-radiant, and ferociously powerful iteration of your soul that has ever walked the earth. For the final time, you are not losing your mind, and you are entirely incapable of losing yourself. You are, at long last, embarking on the magnificent journey of finding yourself. And my friend, this profound excavation has only just started. Right here, at the climax of our journey, I invite you to tune back into your auric field. Hone in on the radiant thermal energy glowing beneath your ribcage. Physically feel the intense, harmonic coherence that has been systematically layering itself within you throughout the entirety of this broadcast. Acknowledge that the signal of your spiritual emergence is exponentially more potent right now than it was the moment you pressed play. This is not a psychological placebo effect. This is empirical, mathematically sound, and physically verifiable. It is the literal sensation of your electromagnetic grid aggressively deleting old data and rewriting its core code with every breath you draw. Do not dismiss this as mere poetic metaphor or wishful imagination. This is the raw machinery of the quantum universe operating flawlessly within your own flesh. Your aura is actively broadcasting the frequency of your most triumphant emergence. You have been blazing with a magnificent light this entire time, even during the most suffocating, pitch-black midnights of your transition, even when the grief felt like it would swallow you whole, and even when you were wandering hopelessly through the terrifying expanses of the identity void. Your internal pilot light never once flickered. It merely stepped back behind the curtain to aggressively restructure, meticulously preparing to unleash a supernova of coherence far beyond anything your past could possibly contain. But the veil has been lifted. Now, you hold the esoteric blueprints. You can tangibly feel the electricity pulsing in your hands. You are fully equipped to pilot this energy deliberately, intentionally, and with devastating manifestation power. As we prepare for the final segment, I leave you with this request. If there is a beloved soul currently walking beside you who is also trapped within the dark, suffocating walls of their own chrysalis, someone whose internal light desperately requires a mirror to remember its own strength, I strongly urge you to share this sacred space with them. Consider returning to this energetic transmission together, within the sacred, undisturbed silence of early dawn just before the chaotic momentum of the waking world takes root, or in those deeply vulnerable twilight moments right before you surrender to sleep. Your electromagnetic field is at its absolute most porous and hyper-receptive. Choosing to share this message during these specific, quiet intervals transcends a simple digital gesture. It actively casts a powerful, golden ripple of quantum resonance straight into the energetic grid of another human being. When you forward this frequency to a soul who is silently struggling in the dark, you act as a spiritual catalyst. You suddenly spark their own dormant awareness, illuminating the magnificent alchemy currently taking place within their own cells. By mirroring this truth for them, you simultaneously reinforce both of your auras through the unbreakable law of harmonic resonance, actively contributing to the blinding, collective luminosity we are all building together across this planet. Please hear this and let it settle into your bones. Your aura is completely activated. Your internal light is awake, conscious, and fiercely alive. The signal you are transmitting into the cosmos is sharpening into crystalline clarity. You are a breathtaking, radiant sphere of quantum potential, currently navigating the absolute most extraordinary season of your spiritual metamorphosis. The obsolete, heavy framework of your past self is permanently releasing its grip. The brilliant, unified coherence of your future is actively weaving itself together in real time. The Radiance threshold is rapidly rushing up to meet you, and the magnificent, expansive life that perfectly matches your newly upgraded signal is already aggressively assembling itself within the unseen quantum matrix. It is hovering just out of sight, eagerly waiting for your broadcast to become clear enough, unapologetically consistent enough, and fiercely powerful enough to pull it fully from the ether and drop it directly into your physical reality. I promise you, it is coming. You are blooming. The exhausted, terrified version of you is gracefully stepping aside to roll out the red carpet for the real you. And this real you, the highly coherent, unshakably radiant, and authentically luminous entity that is currently fighting its way out of the chrysalis of this brutal transition, is infinitely more magnificent than anything your former ego could have ever possibly imagined, engineered, or attracted. So I command you to shine. Do not radiate your light simply because a spiritual teacher suggested it, and certainly do not do it because society demands it. Do not treat your luminosity as a temporary performance, a fleeting meditation practice, or a distant aspiration you hope to achieve one day. You must shine simply because that is exactly what you are built to do. You are a localized, breathing sun of quantum energy. You are a walking, talking broadcast of unfiltered, divine frequency. You are a brilliant beacon that has been glowing beneath the surface for your entire existence, and only now is that light becoming fully conscious, flawlessly coherent, and devastatingly more powerful than it has ever been in any of your past chapters. Welcome home to your own brilliance. Welcome to the breathtaking reality of your becoming. Welcome to the miraculous, expansive existence that your brand new frequency is currently architecting. The old you is permanently gone, and the masterpiece taking its place is nothing short of blinding. If the vibrations of this specific transmission successfully penetrated your energetic armor and struck a chord of absolute truth within your soul, prepare yourself. Our next journey together will plunge infinitely deeper. We will venture into the exact message the infinite quantum matrix is desperately trying to communicate to you about who you actually are. It will bypass this current level entirely, sinking straight into the deepest, original signal of your spirit, unveiling the profound truths about your ultimate identity that the universe has been attempting to show you long before this painful transition ever began. Let the frequency find you. Let the metamorphosis complete itself. And most importantly, let yourself finally, truly live.